Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another Admissions Dean's Corner session. Today's topic we have navigating dual degree programs with Dr. Morales. And so, if you haven't watched any of our other sessions in the past, basically with the Admissions Dean's Corner series, it's a series where we have our deans come in and give us a little bit more insight about a comprehensive overview of what it takes to stand out as a competitive applicant and the landscape of dental, medical, podiatry, even veterinary school admissions, and also emphasizing the importance of going beyond the GPA test scores and presenting you all with information about being a well rounded applicant with an authentic application and other components that are also important to take in mind in your journey to professional school. So, again, I am so excited to have Dr. Felix Morales, the Associate Dean for Admissions in School of Medicine at Texas Tech University Health Science Center at Lubbock. So, Dr. Morales will give us some information and insight about navigating dual degree programs. If you are familiar with our application, already started filling it out, already submitted your application perhaps, you notice that when selecting your schools that you want to apply to, that page consists of all the member institutions that we have available on the application, as well as any additional dual degree programs that are also offered at the institution. So I think we have a perfect candidate with us today to go over those since Texas Tech does have the largest amount of dual degrees offered. So if you have any questions at any point, you can drop those into the chat. We will address those as we follow along into the presentation, short presentation, and as well as any additional questions will also be answered at the end. So again, these dual degree programs are mainly if you're interested in academia, research, and other areas that will help with your career in the future. And so we'll go ahead and get started. Dr. Morales, if you can tell us a little bit more about yourself, a fun fact or a fact about you and your own journey to professional school.
Well, first of all, let me thank you for allowing me to have this platform here today and this afternoon. I always feel honored and privileged to be able to join you guys and provide insight and wisdom to those potential applicants, or if you're part of the applicant pool this year. So thank you so much. Um, so am currently in Lubbock, Texas, and I guess something that's a fun fact about myself is that I love dogs. I'm a dog owner of two dogs, an Australian Shepherd and a Boston Terrier, who is a menace in our house, but we love them still. I love watching movies as a hobby. I guess a really interesting fun fact about me, I'm really shy and introverted, but I love jumping on a stage and jamming out to a good karaoke song. I love doing that. In terms of my own personal journey to this point of my career, I'm first generation, and so I'm a first gen student. Both my parents were immigrants to this country, and I was not the first to go to college. I was the second in my family to go to college out of thousands or hundreds of, or excuse me, not hundreds, but many cousins, I should say. And I was the first to graduate from medical school, so I'm very proud of that. So I always say, if you see me here, that means you have the ability to be here as well. So I'll pass the mic back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's also very insightful and meaningful to hear from someone like you mentioning, like I was also in y'all's shoes a couple years back, and I went through this journey. Also, hopeful as a first gen student. I myself am also a first gen student, so I totally understand, and I can relate to like the struggles that come with being that, but also the triumphs that come with uh, getting to this point in your career. And I'm sure that that can also be relatable to other applicants who are going through this journey. So, yeah, that's also very helpful and insightful for applicants as well. All right, and so we have a just another. Since you are from tech, if you want to give us any more information about your school, this is an opportunity to brag about your school, not just the fact that they do offer a lot of dual degree programs. So, what else would you like to highlight from your school?
We are located in the heart of West Texas, and so our mission as a medical school really is to find and train future physicians to take care of underserved communities, whether it be West Texas or beyond. So the mission of our medical school really is to find those individuals who are, passionate about taking care of underserved communities, that are passionate about taking care of populations that oftentimes are neglected, whether it be because of their location, whether it be because of their unfortunate income situations. So we're here to provide that, and I love our students and the fact and how much they're able to give back not only to our local community here, but also to the regional campus sites that we have partnerships with. A unique aspect of our medical schools that we do have, we are a multi-campus system. Lubbock is our hub campus, but we have campuses across this West Texas region and the Permian Basin, which is the Midland Odessa area, also in Amarillo. I love the fact that we are very student centric, very student friendly. We definitely are a family here at Texas Tech, and one of the things that I love the fact about is our students are really involved in every aspect of their learning, including the committees that are part of making the curriculum, including the committees that are part of even choosing applicants to come into our medical school. Our students have a strong voice in terms of them being heard when there's any issue that comes up. Um, and our educators, whether it be the clinicians or the basic science professors, are always available with an open door to make sure that our students are navigating learning from every level until they graduate from medical school. And there's mentorship throughout levels as well. Another really awesome fact about our school is that in terms of the resources that we provide to our students is I feel like second to none. If there's an academic resource that's available that will help them prepare for step one or help them prepare for their block learning, we provide that for them without any sort of concerns in terms of the financial cost of things of that sort. So I feel like we do a very good job of supporting our students.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I know that with applicants applying, a lot of times they um, might be feeling a little bit intimidated about, making sure everything is good on their application, leaving a good impression.
Mhm.
But I think it's also helpful for them to know that on the other end, getting into this school and how, like you said, student centered it is, I think it's also reassuring for them.
I always say this about applying to medical school. I know there's some intimidation about taking that leap, and I always say that once you enter any medical school, and I always love to also brag upon the other medical schools across the state, just because we have such a collaborative environment here in our state of Texas, and I always so wherever you end up going to in terms of medical school here in the state of Texas, you're going to get a good top quality education. And I always say that we try our very best to make sure that we're supportive of the students, and we want to make sure that we're trying to, get them through the finish line. And I always say that once you enter the door of medical school, we're going to do everything we can to prepare you for the real world in terms of becoming that physician for the future.
Yeah, thank you so much. I love that. So yeah, and that's why we also at Team DSCS we brag a lot about our schools.
Mhm.
I know our Team DSCS director Enrique definitely does a good job of that as well.
Yes, yes.
All right, so we'll go ahead and get started, y'all. So just to for us to get a little bit more understanding of dual degree programs, do you mind sharing a little bit about like the purpose of those dual degree programs, in the context of those getting their MD or DO or even their DDS for those who are in dentistry, as well as any benefits to getting a dual degree program?
For sure. So there's several types, and each school has their kind of their own different types of programs that are to their, I guess, based off of their curriculum. I'll explain a little bit about ours and I guess the benefits of that. So I think the longest standing program that we've had in terms of a collaboration with another school we have is called an MD MBA track, and I think the benefit of that for us personally is making sure as we train our physicians, we also want them to know the financial ramifications of their career, right? So the saying goes, medicine's a science, healing's an art, but healthcare is a business. And so we want to make sure that our learners that go through that program have that healthcare management focus aspect to that program. And then the benefit of that is for them to become those future leaders in terms of becoming, chief medical officers, or you know uh, um, even CFOs of various hospital systems across the country. So we're trying to train those individuals to become those leaders in the future. The MD PhD track is a wonderful opportunity for our students who want to become research medical scientists. It really gets them involved in the research aspects of whatever specialty they want to go into. We tend to have a focus more so on like cancer research, neuroscience type of research here at our institution, but we try to find that silo, that pathway for them to enjoy whatever research aspects that they're wanting to do. I think the benefit of that program is it allows them to become that medical research scientist, and there again taking that leadership role for research in the future as well. We have a master's of public health program here too. It's tied into our MD curriculum, and a lot of the students oftentimes will take either a gap year or will complete that within the 4 years. And especially post pandemic, public health is such an important key issue for just the general public in general, and making sure that our students are going to be leaders in terms of that as well. We have a master's of science program that also allows our students to do this intensive research, and it provides them that opportunity to get into that research or provide that research knowledge of that base for them to become that competitive applicant in the future. For us, we have a new program that we're very proud of. It's the Masters of Engineering program. I think we're one of few schools. I know we're a couple schools in the state of Texas that offer that program. But we also saw the future in terms of how we're going to train students, because we know that the technological advances, AI, those types of things are coming into the fold, and we want to make sure that our students are prepared to handle those challenges as well.
Hmm. Yeah, thank you so much for the information. And yeah, it definitely sounds like there's a variety of disciplines at your school specifically that also applicants can um, get some experience in along with their medical degree. Okay, so we'll follow along. So as I mentioned earlier, in our application, there's a variety of disciplines, a variety of dual degree programs offered at the various institutions that we have on the Team DCS application. And so I went ahead and went through our application, kind of got a gist of the various areas that are covered. And so I was able to gather this list. So if you have any further insight about this, I know you briefly already talked about this.
Yeah,
Um,
I definitely
yeah.
can. I can provide much more for sure. And I looking at your list, the one that's near and dear to my heart, because I'm a board certified family medicine physician.
Thank
Our
you.
family medicine tracks, and so for me, we have a unique track. We kind of have it on the umbrella of our dual degree programs. Not truly dual degree because you're getting your education just through the one institution, but we have what's called the family medicine accelerated track, and it's unique in the sense because we are able to graduate you from medical school in 3 years. It's
Mm.
just a wonderful opportunity for those students who are really invested in primary care, specifically in family medicine, and they know at the beginning, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Well, we have that opportunity here at Texas Tech, and we try our very best to recruit and to find students to fulfill that mission of that track. And for us, it's kind of near and dear in the heart to our own personal mission of our medical school, and trying to find or trying to educate the future physicians who are going to take care of those underserved communities. Whether, like I said, once again, whether they be here in West Texas or beyond. Um, the specific tracks in terms of just the one I always forget to mention. I apologize to our law school across the street, but we do have a JD MD track. I kind of jokingly say it's the MD JD track. Uh, but it's a wonderful opportunity there again for those who are wanting to become lawyers and physicians at the same time. And people always ask, well, what do you do with that? For me, it's about more those future leaders who want to be involved in healthcare related policy issues, who want to help kind of dictate the conversation in the future, whether it be here locally, whether it be at the state level, be at the federal government level. We definitely need more people to be educated on just the legal maneuverings that are involved in terms of just healthcare and healthcare related policy. Um, the business, like I mentioned beforehand, healthcare is a business, and we want to make sure that those people who are going through that MDA track have that sense of being able to be those leaders who are going to help the financial aspects of whatever degree that they take care of. So I can go on and on. So I want to stop you right. I want to stop right now and allow you to ask more questions about this. So
Yeah, definitely. No, thank you so much for that insight. So yeah, and there's a couple of tracks here. Um, Such as a bioethics. I think that's also the degree. I know that's at the UTRGV.
mhm,
You mentioned engineering. I know A&M also offers like an NMed
mhm,
as well. So, and then just even hearing you talk about the family medicine and mentioning how it's a 3-year track rather than 4.
yeah.
In that case, is that, for example, I'm curious, I mean, I'm not an applicant, but perhaps as an applicant, do you apply to tech and then you mentioned this, I want to do primary care. I know that's for sure what I want to do. In those interviews, is that where you'll have the conversation about possibly having that be the track and being the 3-year program?
So each program has their different ways of how they want to screen the applicant, how they want to
Hmm.
interview the applicant. Um, Specifically, if I talk about the family medicine accelerated track, as you know, once they log in and they start the application process, the TMDSCS, and they check the box off for Texas Tech, there should be a drop down list of all the specific programs. So how we were able to first identify the applicants through that process, we have a secondary application that we require all applicants complete who want to apply to our school. And in that secondary application, there's an additional location where they can check another box off on the program that they're most interested in. And then there's there's really small additional essay that they have to complete. In terms of the interview process, if they make it through that point of the interview process, we still have the two standard interviews format. We don't have an MMI here at our institution, but what we do for specifically for those who are interested in any of these dual degree pathways, depending on the partner, but specifically for the family medicine group, there is a third interview. So there is a third interview in which we have our family medicine department, whether it be here at Lubbock or the Permian Basin or Amarillo. We have a faculty member that will interview those applicants. One, just to make sure that they have a sincere interest in family medicine, and also two, to kind of prove to them, hey, what would you do in terms of bringing more into this program? How can you spotlight yourself? What would you do? And kind of really shining through their resume and also through that course of the interview as well.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for letting us know. And you, speaking about essays, it just reminded me that whenever applicants do select those additional dual degree programs on the select schools page, in the essays, it will then generate those additional essays for those dual degree programs.
Yes.
Uh, yes. So be mindful of that as well. Okay. Moving on. So speaking about the dual degree programs and how those complement with your healthcare degrees, could you give us a little bit more information about how the integration of knowledge comes to be, the career opportunities that are available than just having the MD degree, for example, or any kind of additional insight about the contributions that applicants can be doing and offering by electing to do a dual degree program?
Yeah, so in terms of just the integration of the knowledge, I'm going to spotlight our engineering a master's program that we have that's tied into our MD. So, there's been discussions at our curricular level here that towards the future they're going to try to adopt some engineering principles and how we go about training our future physicians. So there's going to be some potential structural changes to that in our curriculum. Um, we have a really unique course here at Tech called P3, which stands for patients, physicians, and populations, and it's a unique course in the sense that it catches a lot of these different integration in terms of speaking about public health or speaking about future of engineering or business, and we have these robust discussions with our students, and we're also teaching them at the same time, and that's how we're able to integrate a lot of these different concepts from the various dual degrees into the actual curriculum in itself. Um, Now, in terms of those career opportunities, it just depends on the career track and what you do with it, right? In terms of, for example, the MD PhD track, those students oftentimes will then go off and, eventually everyone will graduate with an MD. So the MD is that primary, degree that you'll carry with you, and that's what allows you to open the doors for residency programs. And once you get into your residency program, if you're like that MD PhD type, then you have the ability with that PhD to then continue on with your research, to continue on doing those types of things through residency. And once you complete that portion of the residency, then not only are you going to be seeing patients, but you're also going to be able to handle the labs and all the things that come with being that medical research scientist in the future. Um, so that's more specific to that particular track. Like I mentioned beforehand, the MD MBA track, those that to me seems to be more the career opportunities come a little bit later on in your career in terms of being that physician who's going to be able to be a CMO, do all those types of things, and that kind of guides you towards that career track in the future.
Hmm. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just when thinking about this, as when I was also thinking about school and the time commitment and as well as the financial investment in it, it's like what is going to help me get to those future goals that I have for myself. So, being able to hear those different pathways can help also applicants kind of get an idea of what they could expect that will help them get to those points.
And if I could just interject, I know that
Hmm.
the financial situation, it's always something that's obviously lingering in someone's mind when it comes to someone's medical education. And what we try to do to offset some of those expenses, for example, like the MD PhD track, there's a substantial scholarship that's involved in terms of those students going into that track. The MD and E, our engineering track, our partner, the Whitaker College of Engineering, will offer them a scholarship for their time being students during that program. So there are additional scholarship opportunities that help offset the cost of that as well.
Hmm. That's really good to know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that way, I know sometimes that can be a constraint for some applicants, but even knowing that this is offered at your school and partner with the engineering department can also even prompt other applicants to take a look at those programs at other member institutions to see if that's what they offer as well, or something similar.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would always take that advice to anyone who's applying to these tracks is, what do they offer? How's the structure? How's the curriculum? All those things are pretty important in terms of making those decisions and what medical school you want to attend in the future for sure.
Hmm. And I think that's a great segue into our next part of the presentation here, kind of what it looks like to be able to find the right dual degree program for an applicant. So assessing those interests that they have, researching the programs like you mentioned, and like what they offered, and even the application process. So any insight that you can give us about those areas?
Yeah, for sure. I would say if I'm taking more of the step back on the applicant side and how do you project yourself to one of these programs? One, obviously, if you have an invested interest in whatever specific dual degree program that you want to apply to, make sure that you're doing something in your application process to maybe highlight those attributes as you start applying to those programs. But in terms of researching the programs, look at have there been any sort of drastic changes to the curriculum? Has there been any sort of, those types of things oftentimes will cue in of where the curriculum's at, how strong are the partnerships in terms of, uh, you know, the specific dual degree programs are with the medical school and whatever partner that they have, and the time commitment too is also very important because, and as many times as applicants hear this saying or this stereotype, going to medical school is like drinking water from an open fire hydrant, right? And so you want to make sure that 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 additional burden, that time commitment is manageable, right? So you want to ask the question, how is the curriculum integrated into the medical school? What time constraints do I have, and those types of things, and before you decide to choose that. And in terms of just the application process in itself, like we mentioned beforehand, each school has a little bit different take to that, but you also want to make sure as you're applying, just make sure that somehow you are accentuating those attributes that you think will be good in terms of being an applicant for whatever specific dual degree program you're looking into.
Yeah. And just right now, I also was thinking about the application process. So for here, whenever we get questions about that, I know that especially down in the future when it comes to the TMDCS match, so if you're not familiar with that, match is whenever the applicants are matched to their top ranking medical schools, and the schools have ranked them as well. So that combined generates that match. And so when that happens, a lot of our applicants get matched into the school, but they also apply to a dual degree program at that institution. So we get a lot of questions of, does this mean that I also got into that dual degree program? And so with the match, it's only pertaining to the MD part. So that tells you, yes, you got accepted into this medical school. However, the dual degree program admission process is a little different, and they will reach out to you to let you know if you got into their dual degree program as well.
Yes.
Okay, so that's kind of an overall about the dual degrees that are offered, just giving the applicants an insight of the different areas that are available, how to find the right program for themselves, what kind of questions to prompt them to start thinking about if this is an area that they want to look at, and even doing the research on their own, and a little bit about the process. So if you have any questions, don't forget to drop those into the chat and we'll address those. In the meantime, I did have a couple of general questions that would be helpful for applicants to help them kind of get a better sense of what this looks like. So, if you would have, let me see, I'm going to choose, let's see, you kind of talked about it a little bit, but how dual degree programs would integrate into the standard curriculum for like their MD, DO, or DDS programs, if you have any insight about that.
Yeah, so each one's a little different, but very similar. And I'll spotlight, for example, in our master's programs, um, in whether it be the MBA or engineering or public health. Um, in terms of the curriculum, the way it's designed at our school is the partnership exists just because courses that students take at the medical school level will count towards their required curriculum at the master's level. So if you're taking a course there, it'll count towards there, and that's how they're able to get everything squeezed in and be able to complete the program within a timely manner. And so, what our students do is, in terms of both of those specific master's programs and even our PhD track, in order to complete it within a certain time frame, they're able to start a little bit earlier before they matriculate to medical school in August, and then their curriculum takes a little bit of a pause as they enter that first year of the medical school because we know how labor intensive it is, and then the courses that they're taking currently at that time will count towards that degree as well. And then they come back after their first year of medical school and they'll take additional courses in the summer before year one and year two. And then that's how a lot of the programs are able to be completed within 2 years.
Hmm. Okay, yeah, definitely helpful. And also that way applicants can start kind of getting an idea of planning out what the downtime will look like, and recharging for the next year of their courses as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so before I move on to another areas that we have for discussion, we did get a question here in the chat from Angelica. Is it possible to get a dual degree after I receive my MD? I want to do an MPH/MD, but I am worried about taking too long to finish my degree.
Yeah, well, there's a yes and no component to this. So, for example, if you start a dual degree track, meaning if you just using specifically Angelica's question, MD and PH, you start that, you have to complete it within the time frame of when you started it within that curriculum, right? An MPH though can be obtained later on after you graduate from medical school, independent of that dual degree. But if you want to have a combined dual degree, graduate with your MD and your master's, then the answer is no. You would have to complete it within that time frame. Now, um, the worry in terms of taking too long at our school, if you start and you complete the process, you will graduate within the 4 years still of your MD with your Master's of Public Health.
Mm.
Our MBA program, you graduate within 2 years. You actually get your MBA prior to your MD. And so we try to make sure that the curriculum is designed where you're going to be able to get all that knocked out within the 4 years.
Yeah. It sounds like the applicants would be in good hands with people who already know this is how your curriculum would go, the classes you will have to take to keep them on track.
Exactly.
So in a sense, I can get a sense that there there's not a lot of worry on that aspect. That, for example, if I was an applicant, I wouldn't have to worry that much because I know people have my back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I love that. We do
Hmm.
have your back, and we do have support. We do have guidance. We have all these things that are available for our students once they matriculate and get into these programs.
Hmm. So something that I thought of just with that question, so let's say that someone did, get accepted into their MD program, and if they later on decide, once they're already in medical school, oh, this sounds like a good opportunity of the dual degree, would it be possible for them to apply at that point, or would it be like a separate process, like you mentioned?
We get asked that question frequently during like our interview days because a lot of we try to spotlight a lot of these dual degrees during that time, and like, wow, we love, and so the short answer to that is no. And part of the reason is a lot of these programs are pretty competitive to get into. So, and there are a lot of so these programs have caps of how many students can get into them as well. And so the answer to that is no. That there are some nuances to that question or answers to that question. It's like our MPH, sometimes you can do that, but then going back to that 4 year commitment, then it turns into a 5 year commitment.
Mhm.
And so some of the programs you can jump into them a little after post matriculation, but we oftentimes have that set group as they're coming in. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that, and I can also like get the sense from those who are interviewing, like, oh wow, this is another area I didn't even consider if they hadn't known anything about it beforehand.
Yeah.
But it definitely sounds like do your research after that opportunity, and quickly decide if that's something that you would like to do.
We often tell those applicants that who or come in through our interview day process and they hear about these things or like, well, and they get excited when they hear about some of the opportunities that we present to them. They're we say try to reach out to us as soon as possible because we have to make these decisions. So if you're an applicant who gets accepted to who gets offered an interview, you're still eligible for those programs even if you didn't check those boxes off. You just have to let us know as soon as possible during that process.
Yeah, and then and on the TMDSAS side, if at any point you know that you want to apply to this dual degree program, just send us a message in your portal and let us know, hey, I would like to add this dual degree program. Then it's going to be the quickest way because then we can just check off that box for you manually, and then that is readily available on the school's end to get that information and get you started on that.
Yes.
But yes, we have a comment from Angelica saying, great, thank you. Great, thanks for the information. All right. And so, kind of going on to maybe you can provide some insight about the PhD option at your institution. But are there any kind of examples of the types of research opportunities that are available with the MD, PhD dual degree?
The ones I'm most familiar with, now obviously, you come in and they'll the partnerships with our graduate school of biomedical sciences, and if there's a specific interest that you have, they try their very best to find a researcher that's close to that interest to kind of match you with that person, so you can kind of work with that PhD or that basic science professor. Um, the ones that are kind of more kind of spotlighted here that I hear a lot of is cancer research. Cancer research is kind of a big thing here in our institution. And so that's the one I feel like is the one I like to spotlight the most, just because a lot of our PhD folks are really heavily involved into that. And that's the one that I always like to spotlight when people ask me this question.
Okay. Yeah, that's definitely insightful. And that is a popular interest. Or sometimes we hear some insights from applicants when they are calling, and when it comes to entering their activities and they have some questions, and we hear a lot about research, a lot about their interest in research. So this is also helpful for us, and in the future to refer to them to this resource about the dual degrees offered. So when it comes to you mentioned like various opportunities that there are in the later career for applicants, but would you mind sharing any success stories or experiences of alumni who have completed dual degree programs that maybe you know about?
Just a few for sure. The ones I always like to spotlight are the ones that are close to mine, near to the family medicine accelerator track, which kind of falls in that umbrella, right? So we've had multiple people who graduated with from that track become faculty members. One of them of which is now really involved in the educational portion of our curriculum, and Dr. Keely Hobart is someone I like to spotlight. She's just wonderful. I actually take pride because I actually, when I got involved in academic medicine, she was still a medical student and transitioned to residency. And now she's one of the leaders of our institution in terms of the educational resources that are provided here. So I thought and she comes from a very, uh, um, uh, underprivileged background. She was actually even a JAMP student who did so well for herself. So that's the one person that comes to my mind when I read this question.
Yeah, that's very wholesome, and I don't know, it made me smile just to hear that, and just hearing the possibilities that can occur as in this career, and then even getting to, be one of those lead faculties, like you said, in
Yeah,
at the school that you went to,
yeah.
and especially because we also hold near to our hearts the JAM program, and so that was very special to hear.
She's a wonderful. She's just as introverted as I am, but she doesn't like to brag about herself. But if I give opportunity, she's been a wonderful resource for our department, and to see where she came from, where she's at now, and going through one of these skills programs is just it's a remarkable thing for sure.
Yeah. Ugh, I love that. Okay, let me make sure that we have any questions here in the chat, as well as any other areas of discussion. I know we've already talked quite a bit about the curriculum itself, the different examples, as well as the application. And you kind of hinted at this already, but just to reiterate, you mentioned the application process, but are there any key elements that applicants should focus on in their application?
Yeah. So the process there again, just to restate, it's really structured. The team DSC does this wonderful job in making sure that everything's spotlighted through that primary application. If you check that box off, then it automatically flags us when you receive that application that you're wanting to at least have some interest or pursue that. Our kind of backup to that is our secondary application, and that secondary application does allow those applicants to kind of discuss the reasons why they want to apply to those specific programs, and we actually even allow students to apply more to one. We just tell them, hey, just rank which one you're most interested in.
Mm,
um, and then in terms of the specific parts of you know highlighting their attributes, the things that are going to kind of shine through their application, I see at whatever level you're at, whether you're undergraduate or if you're post grad, if you're doing whatever you're doing to kind of become that applicant for the future, just make sure that you're doing things on your application to kind of spotlight why you want to pursue that, right? So if you worked in a public health setting, or if you have some interest in business and you worked at at a clinic as working with a business clinic manager, or if you have an interest in PhD work, you want to make sure for sure in that specific type of program that you have a lot of research underneath your belt as you apply. So you just want to make sure you're kind of spotlighting those areas that are going to make you a better applicant as you start to apply to the specific programs.
yeah, and I love how you refer to it as spotlighting that into the activities.
Yeah.
That's what my mind goes first, and just thinking about whenever applicants call and they're asking about, what should I put for the description of my activities, I can now confidently say, think about what you want to spotlight, in the sense of like that narrative that they want to communicate to the schools.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I love that because then our team will have that insight to give and say, "Hey, the schools, spotlight that. Well, spotlight whatever you want to communicate." Especially because we get a lot of questions about that research portion for sure.
Yeah, I would say MDP. If there's, those are very far few spots per medical school,
Hmm.
and so the for those who are interested in becoming an MD PhD, you definitely need to have a lot of research underneath your belt. You definitely need to have maybe even some published research underneath your belt to make sure that you're, like you said, you're spotlighting the best part of that application to that school.
Hmm. Okay, definitely keeping that in mind, and I'm gonna take note of that so we
Yeah.
can pass it along to our team and be able to communicate that with the applicants as the question comes up.
Mhm.
And lastly, since we're getting close to the end of our session, um, I was wondering if you had any advice for students who are unsure whether a dual degree is right for them.
I would say there's a couple things. One is if you have a specific interest beyond just your MD degree, then that should maybe trigger that in your mind and say, maybe I want to pursue something like that, right? But at the end of the day, for us, we really focus in on the MD portion of that, right? So you want to make sure if you feel like anything might deviate away from you becoming that physician or getting that MD, then maybe these tracks aren't necessarily for you, right? And that's okay. We don't, you got to know yourself the best. And if you feel like, hey, I just want to really focus in and be able to drink water from that open fire hydrant, then maybe I should just focus in on MD. And there's, like I said, there's some cool things that can come about in terms of becoming an MD, PhD, or having an MBA, BA, those types of things, but it won't necessarily limit your ability to become a great physician in the future.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned that because it's ultimately it you're here to become the physician, right? Like get obtaining your MD, and it sounds like with a dual degree, it's a good way to enhance that and get you additional experience and knowledge. But ultimately, yes, focus on that degree and just knowing that medical school is it's challenging. It's going to take up your time as well, and so you would definitely want to focus on that being your top of mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm. Okay. So let me just double check and see if we have any additional questions. Um, okay, we have a follow-up
Mhm.
from Angelica. So is it possible to apply to FMAT and a dual degree program at Texas Tech?
Yes, it is. It is. We don't limit anyone to that. The only thing that we would ask when you apply is, on a secondary app is, hey, which one would you, rank the ones that you're most interested
Okay.
in?
And so just to get an idea, because you mentioned the FMAT is the family medicine track. Is that
Yes,
correct?
yes. Now,
And then,
yeah,
okay.
well, I apologize. So if you get into
Mhm.
FMAT, we always advise those students, hey, it's going to be really, because it's accelerated, it's compressed. It'd be harder for you to get that dual degree, right?
Mhm.
So you have to be focused in on completing that accelerated track.
Okay. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Oh, this popped up again. All right. Well, it looks like that is the end of our questions. But I just want to also leave it open. I know you already gave that advice of, kind of if someone is on the verge of like, maybe should I apply, should I not for a dual degree, what to consider. But overall, for all our applicants watching who are maybe they're just focused on getting that MD and any kind of insight that you can provide as their applicants are finishing up their applications and getting that submitted.
One is just really taking that self inventory about yourself, right, and making sure. I always say your first application should always be the very best if you can, right? So if you feel like there's any sort of doubts that I need to do this or do that, or then maybe you should take a step back. There's no one will ever, get angry or look at you're taking a gap year. No, we actually love the fact that sometimes students will take gap years before they apply, so they can make themselves that well-rounded competitive applicant. And kind of using that word well-rounded, I think most schools, I think all schools really use that holistic approach. Every holistic approach is a little bit different in terms of how they look like in to the various medical schools. I always say in terms of the holistic approach, just make sure that you are, doing a little bit of everything, but more importantly, spotlighting those attributes that are going to be so worthwhile to all the medical schools. And for us, it's the passion of service, it's the passion of giving back to those underserved communities. So make sure you're spotlighting that some way in your application before you decide to apply.
Yeah, I love that because we do get questions from reapplicants or those who um, contact us and let us know, actually, I realize that I can't go through with this application cycle. Is this going to look negatively bad on me if I decide to reapply? And it's good to hear that that is not the case, and just also making sure that we're able to further communicate the what you guys have mentioned, all our deans, that it's actually not a bad idea if you have to step back and making sure that you do submit like the best application version that you can as possible.
I would say this, and just to kind of give credit to Enrique, who's the director there, right? He provides data to our other medical schools, and you reapply, and actually, there's a good chance that you might get in the second time you apply. I think statistically, it's like 40% of those who had to reapply got in somewhere. And I always say this too, in terms of just the application in itself. You know, we receive thousands of applications every year, right? And literally, a lot of the schools are splitting hairs to figure out which person do I bring in for an interview, which person do we allow to come into the medical school, right? So make sure there's some uniqueness to your application that stands out, right? And so make sure that you're there again, spotlighting those personal attributes that are going to be enhancing your ability to look good on an application.
Yes, and if you have any questions about those attributes, as mentioned, or the activities, we do have resources that do resources on our website and in our application guide that will give you some insights as to what those are and how to incorporate those into your application. Again, really honing in on that message of spotlighting
Yeah.
uh, those attributes. We did get one question that trickled in, so I we do have time, so I'll go ahead and list it here really quickly. But here we have a question from Natalia. Hello, is mid-July considered late for an application? We get this question a lot.
And gosh, looking at the data, it would probably be if we received it by mid July, maybe not so much. If you turned it in by mid July, it might be late just because of the processing that takes place. And also, by that point, if we're doing a time frame, for example, if the team DSCS receives it, it might take 3, maybe 4 weeks before the processing occurs. And then before that gets distributed onto the medical schools, it might be August at the earliest. And then for us, our process, once we receive that primary, you should get a secondary app within 2 weeks. And so that's sometimes a bit of the delay because we won't interview you, we won't offer you until we get everything included in the secondary app. So if we're theory looking at that mid July, August, by that point, I would say at least half, if not more than half, of all our interview spots have already been taken up by those who've already applied before you. So that's the risk you run in terms of that. Um, Now, if you're saying that you applied, say June, and the application got transmitted to us by July, then there's that possibility, yeah, that you are a guy within that sweet spot that I always talk about. And I always say the sweet spot is probably end of May, first week of July in terms of submitting your application.
Mm, that's good to know. That's good to know. We get that question a lot.
Yeah.
And kind of following up on Natalia's question, how long does it take for the application to be received? So here at TMDSCS, we give a general timeline of 2 to 4 weeks, just because depending on the volume of applications we receive, we can say it could take up to 4 weeks. I am very proud to say that our team is currently processing those applications within about like 2, maybe 3 week mark. So they're actually going to the schools very fast this cycle. Those are coming in into their inboxes. But if you at any point have any questions about or curious as to what date our team is currently processing applications submitted on a specific date, you can check that out at www.tmdscs.com. Our homepage does have that listed out as to the date that our team is processing. So if you see on there the date of like maybe May 30th, that means that our team is currently processing the applications that were submitted on that date. How long does that take? Again, just depends on how many applications we receive per date because our team processes applications as they come in per date.
If I could just add one last point to that processing part, and one I'd love to spotlight the team DCS. I mean, the people who process those applications are amazing folks. I got a chance to meet some of those a few years ago, and just the work that they do with the volume of applications they receive is just awesome. But for us, it's kind of a nice thing about our medical school is the fact that we do post our secondary app questions on our website. So we want to make sure that we're fully transparent to the questions that are going to be asked. So, processing is or submitting is of the essence. So if you are able to look at those questions, have answers ready, when you do get that secondary app from our institution, you can turn that in as soon as possible as well.
I love that. Just because we get questions like, what do I do in the meantime? While they're waiting patiently for those applications to process. So that also kind of gives applicants an insight as to maybe check other schools as well on their websites to see if those secondary questions are also listed on their website to kind of help you already start getting your gears running as to, okay, here's how I would reply to that essay and what I want to include.
Yes.
Lastly, so would being a minority affect my application in any way, good or bad?
That's a loaded question. And it's to answer your question, no, no one's race, ethnicity, gender will affect you in any way, good or bad. In the state of Texas, but actually nationally, post Supreme Court decision from last year, we just cannot look at anyone's race, ethnicity, or gender when it comes to applying to medical school. So being a minority won't affect your application in any way. So I want to reassure you that for sure.
Alrighty, well, thank you so much, Dr. Morales, for joining us for this session. It was super insightful, and we will definitely be posting this session. Well, one, it'll be readily available for everyone to watch the recording after we end this, and we will also make sure that this is also posted along with our resources and especially our webpage that hosts the list of dual degree programs offered at our application.
Okay. Well, thank you so much once again for inviting me to this. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you so much. So everyone, stay tuned for the next admission Dean's Corner series session. The next one will be on Tuesday with Dr. Kennedy, and that will be talking about HPACs and letters. Alrighty, everyone. Thank y'all for joining, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye bye.
Bye.